Hello, my friends. I am so excited for you to be here today. I see that some people are already here watching. If you're here, I can see numbers, but I can't see who you are. So I would love if you guys just drop a note, say hello, so I know that I'm not here talking to myself. Now, I am super excited about today's discussion because I think it's one that we really need to have, especially with the fact that we've been talking about toxic workplaces so much lately. And I know that so many of you are in one, you've recently escaped one, you're concerned you might be in one. One of the things that happens most frequently is there's these impacts that happen. And we've had a lot of discussion, so I won't dive in there because I want to get straight into it. But one of the things that I've seen most frequently when I was in a toxic workplace was burnout. Now, luckily, I happen to be very good friends with a burnout recovery expert. My friend Charlene is here today. She recently wrote a book. It's just coming out now. I have it right here with me, and we will be talking more about that. But she is going to talk to us today about burnout, about what it is, how it works, what to do about it, and all of that. So without any further ado, I'm just going to bring Charlene up here with me. Hello, Charlene.
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. Let's see, Anne, Erica, Sarah, Cole. Yes. Hello. Thank you all.
Hi, Anne. Hi, Erica. Cole's here. Now, Cole is on LinkedIn. Charlene, when you hang out on LinkedIn again, you and Cole, I feel like you guys same wavelength. You are both just such awesome people. So just side note, making it personal. Okay, so I am super excited. So we have an hour here today, and we are going to be talking all about burnout. And there literally is no one better to have a discussion about burnout. So Charlene, I don't like to do lengthy introductions, but just 30 seconds, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up working with people that are burnt out?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a New York City-based therapist, and I started a business in 2018 called Everyday Coherence, teaching people to connect and become coherently clear between mind and body. And so my own healing journey is ultimately what brought me there, as I started to really integrate mind-body modalities into my daily life through yoga, through mindfulness, and then through skiing and downhill mountain biking. I started spending a lot more time in my body, and I realized, oh wow, when I'm focused in the present moment on my body, my extraneous thoughts, all of that mind chatter slows down. And when that started to happen, I felt this sense of effervescent joy just bubbling up. And when I started to experience that, I went, hey, I think I might be onto something here, which is what inspired me to go and get my master's degree in social work, to eventually become a therapist, to start Everyday Coherence, etc. And so I didn't actually aim to specialize in burnout. I aim to specialize in mind-body integration to find that sense of joy, fulfillment, energy, all of that kind of good stuff. And then my clients that started coming to me, I realized a pattern and saw, oh, yeah, that's burnout. And it really perfectly worked well because burnout is the modern day and super pervasive joy suck, the energy suck, and all of that type of stuff. So that was definitely how I ended up specializing in burnout and then ultimately writing the book that I did, Burn Bright.
Awesome. So we have Thomas here with us as well. So I just want to say hello. Now let's get straight into the questions. No beating around the bush here. Okay. First things first. One of the things, and I'm just going to be the person who's referring to this like a textbook. One of the things that I love so much in your book is right at the outset, you have this amazing checklist to help people figure out if they are burnt out. Now I'm curious how many of the people on this call, in this session right now, are in burnout or watching the replay. I'm not going to judge where you are. But Charlene, can you bring us through the checklist and let's help people figure out where they're actually at?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. So I'll just mention it's on page 10 of the book. So right near the beginning.
If anyone has it on hand like me, I just flipped to the page.
Exactly. And so as I read through each of these, I suggest really sitting with each one and saying, is this my experience right now? Is this my lived experience?
Yeah.
I also want to have a little caveat that this is not a absolutely medical diagnostic tool, nor nor is it an exhaustive list. I remember actually, Jennifer, you and I had sent you, a burnout, a self-assessment checklist like 2 years ago. It had like 3 pages long, and you were like, whoa.
But I love this though, because it does give you an idea, and I'm going to do my best to just like hold it up a little bit so you can see, because this book is so wonderfully designed. My camera will not focus. But for those of you that are joining us right now, if you can just keep note, like tick mark, count on your fingers. I'm curious how many you guys are going to check off. Again, not diagnostic, but even if it's just for fun, to get a read, and it'll help us know where you're at in our conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you. And it's a self-awareness and self-assessment tool, because the ones on the checklist, as we'll read through, are very much some of the most common ones, and they cover a couple of different areas and themes. So it might be like, oh, right, I'm feeling totally exhausted most of the time. Oh, maybe that relates to my sleep or different areas. So it can definitely translate over to other stuff. Right. So without further ado, okay. I'm totally exhausted most of the time.
Check for me.
I feel overwhelmed by my mounting to-do list and competing priorities. I feel constantly busy, yet I feel like I'm achieving less than I should. I experience anxiety or low-grade panic. I struggle with work-life balance and have little personal time, even for friends and family. And what's not specifically on this checklist here, but it can be an extension, is kind of the feeling of not wanting to hang out with loved ones, not wanting to hang out with friends, feeling kind of disconnected and distant.
Right.
Yeah. I'm becoming increasingly irritable, annoyed, angry, and short-tempered. I'm under a crushing amount of pressure to succeed.
That's a heavy one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know a lot of my clients have that one.
Yeah. And that's one of the areas that we get to work on in my book and right with your clients as well. Yeah. Next one. I'm increasingly cynical or hypercritical towards myself and others. I have trouble either falling asleep or staying asleep. I find it hard to concentrate and stay on task. Next one. Life has become a bunch of tasks to get done, and I'm losing all sense of purpose. That's a big one too. Kind of life becomes just a checklist to get done for the end of the day. Yeah.
Got to do this, got to do that, got to go to work, got to brush my teeth, got to make dinner, got to get the kids ready.
Boom,
the
boom,
daily
boom,
checklist is real.
Mm-hmm. I've been drinking and or eating too much. And then specifically with food, it could be perhaps eating too little, losing your appetite.
I've been very guilty, especially during the pandemic, of having a glass of wine most nights instead of some nights.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people are saying something similar.
Absolutely. Yeah. Taking the edge off.
Yes.
Next one. I worry a lot about work, people, and the future and or the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not
this is
so much
I find, especially for the people, because I know over on YouTube, a lot of people, are hanging on my channel because they're not in a great work situation. And that is one that I feel is very, very prevalent. Virtually everyone I have worked with has had this checked off.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I hear you on that. And we in our minds tend to be time travelers. We're busy either worrying about the future or thinking about something that we did wrong in the past, that type of a thing. So even if not a toxic work environment or even not related to work, other aspects of life, our brains are busy going in all those directions.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And last one here, I suffer from digestive problems, tension, headaches, and or chronic aches and pains.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If anyone would like to share, I won't put it on screen. We'll keep it quiet that way. But if you guys want to share how many of those you checked off, or if you checked off some of them, all of them, most of them, again, I'm not going to force you to share anything that you don't want to share. But if you do feel comfortable, again, it'll just help us get a read about where you're at, just so that we can make this as relevant as possible to you. I'm just trying to keep this like nicely displayed. It's such a beautiful look, which you guys are going to like just gloat about it for a while, but that's okay. Now, as those answers come in, one of the things that I wanted to ask, obviously, there's a lot in general going on in the world today. Not naming any specific things. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's a few.
Right? And then on the, like, when we look at it from a work context perspective, so, you know, a lot of people here, again, they're in toxic workplaces. They have chronic stress at work because of the people that they're dealing with, because they have bad leadership, all of those things, or even just the typical work stress. But what causes burnout in these situations? Like, why all those symptoms? Why is this happening to us?
That's a great and ginormous question, and it can be individual, absolutely. But a big piece of it is our stress response. It's kind of like we've reached these thresholds of being able to manage stress, and it's coming at us from every angle. And we've never really been taught how to process our emotions, process stress properly, that kind of a thing. And it actually very much connects to our neurobiology, the idea of being able to feel and be safe in this world. And things are so uncertain and have been so uncertain for the last year that our bodies and minds, our nervous systems are on hypervigilance, high alert. It's actually specifically the autonomic nervous system. It's the sympathetic mode, which is the fight, flight, freeze response, which some people here might be able to relate to, and or I've heard of that before, because fortunately there's more and more being talked about around that. And so burnout very much is due to chronic stress and constant stress continuously coming in, that there isn't a chance for the body to get back to the natural parasympathetic mode, which is the rest and recovery mode, the mode that we're supposed to be in more of the time. And so burnout is very much the sympathetic mode of your nervous system being stuck on. So that sense of always being on, that wired and tired, is quite literally your nervous system is stuck in survival mode.
Right. So if I were to put this into context of what's going on right now. So let's say that you are in a toxic situation at work, or you're in a stressful situation at work, because even there's just a lot of stability and questions, and people are starting to go back into office, and there's all of that stuff. So think about when you are in those stressful situations at work, that fight, flight, or freeze response is being triggered. That stress response is being triggered. Now, maybe in the olden days when we weren't socially distancing and the world was fully open, we would, go home and go to the gym and do all of these things. But those things have also been removed. So where Charlene talks about getting into your body, those things aren't always available to us right now. We have this routine disruption, which is also adding stress. And there's the overarching stress about everything that is going on as well, and the things that go with it. So that is putting you into this kind of constant state.
Absolutely.
And that actually, so I want to dig in there, because I read your book, and I know you, we hang out, we talk, and never have you said that you have to be outside of the stressful situation in order to recover from burnout. And I think here, this is something very important because people that are in stressful workplaces or just a stressful place in their life, you don't want to have to escape before you stop being burnt out. And this is one of the things also that we've talked about on my YouTube channel quite a bit, is that especially people that are in toxic workplace situations, they know they need an exit strategy, but their energy level to implement and to find a new job is zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in your expert opinion, when do you start working on it once you self-identify that you are in any level of burnout from mild to severe?
Yeah. Thank you. Well, immediately. So, because awareness, of course, is the first step, and being able to look at it as your wake up call to change, right? Instead of seeing, like, if people going through the self-assessment, I see some of them said like 9, 8, all but 2.
Most people were like vast majority of those checklists, which is not surprising right now.
Not surprising at all. And so recognizing that not from a place of deficit of, oh God, I am burnt out, this is a mess, right?
Yeah.
We're going, okay, yeah, this all makes sense. I am burnt out. I am taxed to the max. And now what can I do about it? So really being the springboard to make change.
Yeah. So I guess that brings us like basically to the book, which apologies, but sorry, not sorry, really, to everyone watching, because I'm going to shamelessly promote Charlene's book because the official launch date is April 27th, but you can get it on Amazon now.
Yeah, it apparently is available as of 2 days ago.
Yeah, so I got my copy. And so I'm just going to pop this if you guys are interested in picking up the book, because I think that this, at the baseline, my opinion, for when you are trying to grow something, a great place to start is with books. And this is not a heavy lifting book, and what I loved about it so much when I read it was that I've seen other burnout books that it's like 300 pages of text talking about all of these things. And it's like, I'm burnt out. I don't have time for that. I don't have energy for that. But what Charlene's book really is it talks about, obviously the origins of burnout, but it gets really deep into how to do it. And then it has all of these incredible exercises, which it's living in my bookcase right here so that I can go to them at any point in time. But also when you buy the book, there's like supplemental meditations and stuff. And as someone who has participated in Charlene-led meditations, they are amazing. So as much as I'm going to ask her to like spill some secrets, I really want to encourage anyone who is in burnout to pick it up. It's like $16, but it really, like, the value in it is so amazing. Like, to me, it's the best $16 investment in a book. And buy the hard copy. Okay, so I'll stop gloating in your book. So we're in burnout. We know that some people here, they're in some level of burnout. So like, what first step, aside from going to Amazon now and buying the book, would you suggest to people hanging out with us right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, let's start with the mindset shift. And with mindset, it's like, okay, all of a sudden, it doesn't mean it's going to be your new belief system, but it's about the willingness to shift a paradigm. Yeah. And that being that we need to start valuing and honoring our downtime and rest, just as much as productivity. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And then a lot of the practice and a lot of what I speak about in my book is learning how to actually integrate that as a lifestyle. How do I start to work with my thoughts and my belief systems and with my emotions and with my behaviors, my chosen actions on how to balance action and rest? Yeah.
No, it's interesting to me because especially when, a lot of us went into lockdown in the past year and stuff like that, it's like, oh, we're going to be home. We're going to have all this extra time to spend on ourselves. But like, the toxic productivity thing came in. So you were supposed to be learning new hobbies and doing new things and going to Zoom parties and all of this stuff. So instead of like doing less, I know a lot of people ended up doing more.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your observation has been kind of over the past year. And, have people been getting more rest, or are you seeing the same thing with people you're working with?
It absolutely varies, but I would agree with you, especially at the beginning, right? It's like, oh, I'm home. I'm going to be so productive in my self-growth, right? In myself, and I sure maybe self-care, but more like, right, like self-development. And so some people did more of that, and they just filled their days with that and became more burnt out on self-development type stuff. Others couldn't quite bring themselves to go there, but they wanted to. So there's this sense of like, I'm failing, right? I'm messing up. I'm such a screw up because I have all this time at home and I'm doing nothing except sitting on my couch. So all a very self-defeating cycle that's very human, very common, especially in our burnout culture, which basically says your worth is tied to what you produce, to how great you can be appearing to the outside world.
Yeah.
How many boxes you can check off in a day, that type of a thing, right?
Yeah.
And so in a lot of ways, we're very much the product of a burnout culture. And so an aspect very much, I'm going to go off a tangent for a slight moment from the question, is learning to burn bright, not out, is really questioning that burnout culture and finding out what feels right to you, finding that true balance. So getting back to your question, at the beginning, I felt like that was a lot of what was happening. And then as the pandemic went on, right, most of us thought, within a couple of weeks, a month, we'll be back to doing our normal stuff, right? And then the summer hit and so everything was integrating into work from home in a big way. And then all of a sudden it was Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call, meeting. And so, and there wasn't even time to say, walk between the meetings to the other meeting room or whatever it was. So in a lot of ways, work itself became more productive orientated, and even less and less time for space in the day.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that I noticed with my clients is through all of that, they're also learning, whoa, okay, I need to prioritize me. I need to really reprioritize, like, how important is work, right? There's this pandemic going on. There's Black Lives Matter movement going on. So many things going on that aren't work related.
Yeah.
It was, along with all the stress and the mental health issues that people are having, they were going, wait a minute, work isn't everything.
Absolutely. And one thing that I found was interesting, especially when companies flipped to remote, was that the work-life boundaries became very, very fuzzy, because obviously work is now happening from home, but also it's like, oh, well, we're in lockdown. You can't do anything. What are you doing anyway? So you can have this meeting at 8:00, or you can reply to this email at 10:00. And it was like, no, those boundaries are even more important because of everything that we are experiencing, even minus kind of the other shifts, which again, like, won't dive into. But that was something that I also noticed. And like, I think boundaries is something that we talk a lot about on my LinkedIn and on my YouTube, but it's also like very important in terms of like, especially when you pull yourself out of burnout, it's going to be important in order to keep yourself from re-entering burnout. I just
100 and freaking % a Rooney there. It's part of preventing it. It's part of recovering it. And it's part of the relapse prevention aspect for sure.
Absolutely. I just want to call out because Professor Heather Austin is here, and I am the biggest fan of hers on YouTube. And thank you so much for dropping in, and totally agree. This needs to be discussed more often. And I just like that Morgan said that she went way too wild with the remodels in every room. I'm honestly a little bit jealous because I kept on wanting to remodel things, but then I got very lazy. But since Charlene is my friend, I did not judge myself for it.
Self-kindness, folks, self-kindness. That is actually one of the key components.
Yes.
Be kind to ourselves.
Yeah. Now, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, if you go into the description, so there's a link to buy Charlene's book. There's like all of her socials and stuff like that, her website. But I also dropped in a link on the extract or on the excerpt, if I can say a word properly, a whole other story. So she actually published a great article and it included an excerpt from her book. And it was on one of my favorite things. And one of the things that I learned from Charlene that I have integrated into my daily life, and it makes such a difference. Charlene, you know exactly where I'm going with this.
I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with this. Would you like me to share?
Yeah, so please. So it's I would love for you to tell us more about head to body ratio, what it is, how to do it, and then like how to kind of action that measure.
Yes, absolutely. And maybe I'll put the action, the measure back to you because you've been experiencing it and you've been working with it.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Yeah. So kind of out of the blue, but based on all of my client needs, I came up with this idea of the head to body ratio. And very much a lot of clients, they like the idea of getting more into your body, spending less time in your head, but it's like, okay, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to get in my body.
I am busy. I have things to do.
Exactly. And the kind of subconscious side of it is, I don't know how to get into my body. It feels like I have a lot of like tension in there. I think I just need to stay out of my body and stay in my head and just keep thinking and going and going.
It can be a scary place.
Yeah. So I said, okay, I need to come up with something that is going to help my clients do on the fly, check in with their bodies on a daily, regular basis. So basically the head to body ratio, I have it set up as a fraction. It's not a mathematical equation. You don't plug in the numbers and say how burnt out you are. It's just using that as a model. So the numerator is your head, meaning how much of you is focused on your thoughts right now. And then how much of you is focused on your body? How much of you is even noticing that you have a body, especially when you're at work? And so a common one, for example, could be 80-20. Super, super common, because of course we spend a lot more time in our heads, and we don't have to be at 50-50 all the time. There's some times when we really want to be using our intellect, and then there's other times that we may be wanting to use our bodies more. So again, it's not a mathematical equation, but it also isn't this is good or bad. Oh man, I'm at this head to body ratio, I'm doing awful. It's going, okay, interesting. In this moment, this is where I'm at. So it's a chance to ask yourself, how much of me is living in my head right now, my thoughts? How much of me is living in my body?
Yeah.
And it can take a little while for people to get used to that concept. But Jennifer, I want to ask you, now that you've been doing it for a while, how long does it take you to do a head to body ratio check-in?
Like 2 seconds. Actually, everyone, if you want to do one right now, and if you're comfortable, you can pop it into the chat, let us know where you're at. But just like gut instinct, no right or wrong answers. How much of you is in your head thinking right now? And how even aware are you of your body? Are you a head floating around? I can tell you that my default, especially like in work zone, is like 90-10. That's it. And that's not, and sustained over a period of time. So obviously sometimes it's very helpful. Like when I'm talking to Charlene on a live and trying to hang out with you guys, like I need to be up here, because if I'm in my body, then I'm just going to be a blob, not communicating.
I will interject for a moment and suggest that grounding into your body just a little bit more allows the nervous system to calm down and actually creates more clarity of thought.
Interesting. So, and not to say that I'm like so lopsided, because this has been something. So what I actually do, and I just have reminders on my phone, and it's just like HTBR, and it's just a check-in of like, how am I doing? Because what I try to do over the course of the day is like find times of like not balance, but there's some sort of equilibrium. So one thing that really helps me is like making sure that I have time for like exercise, meditation, and movement on a daily basis and on a regular basis. Because if I am just sitting in my head all day, that's not the best place for me to be. And that's going to have, for me, implications in my health. And like Charlene said, like it definitely impacts my clarity, because you just like energetically wise, it's just like, okay, like you can't be burning that physical energy if you're not in your body. At least that's my experience with it. So it's something that I do multiple times a day. And sometimes it's just also if I'm very stressed, where am I at? Because sometimes if you're stressed, you need less tension here. So, and I think like, especially kind of going back to like workplace issues or even just you're having conflict with someone in your life, whether it's a coworker, like a parent, a partner, a friend, in those stressful situations, you're very in your head. And even outside of the interaction, you're running through it. What happened? What could I do differently? What do I do next? Like on the checklist, like you're thinking about the future and replaying the past. But if you get out of there, and this is like backed by research too, it's actually when you're not in the situation and you are not thinking about the situation, you change your context, you start moving, your brain is going to reorganize. And that is where the solutions are going to come to you.
Yep, absolutely. And that's where, perhaps some of the people in the audience here have had like their best ideas are in the shower, or right. They're like taking a walk, or whatever it is. They wake up at 2:00 in the morning and jot some great ideas down, because it's when we're integrating our intellect with our body wisdom that the creativity and really the novel ideas and the solutions are able to bubble to the surface.
Yeah. I don't know who did the research about like the ideas coming in the shower, but I have heard it referenced more times than I can count as of late. It's popping up everywhere.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. IRL thing.
Like how much of your book was written? No,
basically all of it. It's waterproof, everyone, so you can take it in the shower.
I'm curious if I didn't see anyone come through the chat. So again, I'm not going to peer pressure, but if that is something that you want to do, but it's really easy. And again, if you're on YouTube, you can follow that link. And on LinkedIn, I will come in and I will drop the link after the live, or if I don't, just harass me. And I promise I will come back to do that. I also want to invite any questions that you guys have for Charlene in terms of burnout, recovery, management. I personally find these things, and the reason why this is going to live on my shelf is that it's not even always about like managing burnout, which sounds really like heavy. A lot of the exercises that she goes into in the book and things like head to body ratio, I also just find helpful for stress management.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's a big piece of it, because burnout is the depletion of your internal resources due to ongoing and chronic stress. And so a huge aspect of it is learning to effectively manage your stress. And then because stressors are always coming at us from all angles, even when there isn't such thing as a pandemic, et cetera, right? And so really learning to practice and incorporate different of these tools into your everyday, then it just allows you to, instead of it being an accumulated stress day after day after day, you're able to diffuse the stress on a daily basis. So you won't have to have burnout anymore.
Yeah. Well, and even if you think about it from like a stress management perspective, like these things, especially again in the last year, not to like harp on this, but like it's compounding. So it's this, then that, then that, then that, and that, and it stacks. And all of a sudden what would be manageable on its own is now incredibly overwhelming. I have personally experienced that. So maybe I'm just talking about myself. Maybe you relate. I'm not sure. Let me know. But the more that you can deal with those things and manage that stress as it pops up, less of it's going to compound. Am I right there, Charlene, or am I totally
You are completely right. You are completely right. Kind of like you're talking compounding, I'm talking accumulated.
Yeah.
It's, they're synonyms similar enough that absolutely we're on the same page as that. So it's like, it's a process, especially if you are burnt out, learning the stress management to release and decompress from all the accumulated stress, while you're also learning to, on a day-to-day basis, kind of nip it in the bud, so to speak, so you don't have this accumulated stress that becomes bigger and a huger problem.
Yeah. How much do you think, and this is like not something that I think we've actually talked about, but burnout obviously impacts people in their day-to-day lives because of the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I think me and you haven't talked about, so I'm sorry for springing this on you.
I'm like, what are we going to talk about right now? I don't even know.
Let's get spicy. I'm actually curious, you know, what you've observed in terms of your clients that are kind of like in the throes of burnout. Obviously, it's not just impacting them, it's going to impact the people around them as well. And, you know, is there different ways that you see, you know, the implications of burnout impacting people's lives, their relationships, and things like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It really, it seeps over into all areas of life. It's easier to snap at your husband, your wife, your loved one, having like less patience for your kids, certainly maybe becoming more disconnected and distant from your friends, even if a level of you, of course, wants to be around your friends. So some people are losing some of their friend groups. And gosh, let me think about some other stuff. I mean, those are some of the biggest ones, the interpersonal stuff. But then also, right, like their physical health, if they're not able to have the energy to exercise and do these different things. So kind of creating maladaptive stress management coping strategies, right? Like we were saying about like, maybe you're now starting to have a drinking problem, and that didn't exist before. And so burnout absolutely affects and can affect all aspects of well-being.
Yeah. A couple questions came in. So one thing I just want to speak to. So Thomas says, unfortunately, age contributes to not wanting to leave a long-term job to start again somewhere else. I totally get that. In that case, like, I mean, it's a very obviously like individual decision. But for those who like, I mean, there's different reasons. Like maybe you have a pension. Maybe it's just like, I only have X much longer to go and I just don't want to learn anything new. I'm going to surf this out. The principles and the stress management and like burnout management totally apply and are going to make the time more bearable, at least in my opinion. What's your thoughts on that, Charlene?
Yep. I absolutely agree with you. And, you know, sometimes recognizing that sometimes we need to make the hard choices that we're scared of to create massive amounts of change. So yes, there's definitely can be a strong belief, and at least in like, you know, our social ideas of what's possible, that at an older age that you're not going to be able to find another job, that other opportunities aren't out there. But that is a bit more of a fear-based scarcity model to it. And so it takes a lot of courage to do it differently. So I would really, and it makes total sense of like, yes, I'm going to stick with my job. So it becomes a really like a conscious decision. All of this is about becoming a conscious consumer of the information you take in, about your personal beliefs, about what you choose to do with them, what actions you take. So the recognizing and going, okay, what feels right to me? Would I rather, I'll just kind of make it black and white. Would I rather mitigate the fear and stay at my work and mitigate the stress and all that kind of stuff and just sort of keep working? Or am I going to step into my fear, ideally with a strong support system around you, and start making those necessary changes to find a new way? Yeah, absolutely. And I think like also just kind of, if you are in a burnt out state, it can limit. I recently read Simon Sinek's The Infinite Game, and another book that I totally recommend. You can buy it after you buy Charlene's. But
but it's also like you kind of see the options in front of you, but like also adopting a mindset of like infinite possibilities and things that you can't see as well. But that's like probably like something to dive down another time.
Infinite
Another
possibilities.
I love this question. So, what are your opinions and strategies to do if the main stressor is a specific person, like a boss?
Yeah, that can be really, really, really challenging, obviously. And it would depend a little bit on what the stressors are. If it's a boss that's micromanaging and annoying, and there's, different factors related there.
Yeah.
Versus say that they are abusive and gaslighting you, or, kind of next level abuse.
If they're a toxic boss, exit strategy. If they're a bad boss, stress management.
Yeah.
Maybe you still need an exit strategy. Again, that's a personal decision. But toxic, there's no way to fix them. The situation is going to degrade. Yeah. But I also suggest in those situations as well, like this is where you need kind of both things. You need me and Charlene. So you need my channel on YouTube, and you need to go and just like snake Charlene's book, because there is a large tactical play to it, obviously, of strategies of figuring out what you want to do. What's your next move? How can you exit? Should you exit? All of those things you need to figure out and get clarity on. But again, it's hard to do when you're in this burnt out, reactive state, because even being in burnout and constantly being in fight, flight, or freeze, you're actually mitigating the logic center in your brain. So you're not going to be making the clearest decisions when you're in that state. So doing some of the work in terms of even just alleviating the burnout, getting started in that journey, and then starting to dig into the strategies and the right next step for you is going to make that next step more meaningful and more successful, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yep. And from my angle, particularly, especially as a therapist, I always come at it from, these are all opportunities for us to learn about ourselves. What is triggering us? What's hitting inside of us that's really painful? And so noticing the thoughts that you have after either during or after your interaction with your boss. Do you feel belittled? Does it remind you, I'm going to go really therapy for the moment. Does it remind you of when you were 5 years old and your dad yelled at you? Right. And so it gives you a chance to go, okay, these emotions are coming up in me, and being able to recognize that and work with that internally, or with a therapist, or with a trusted friend, or your partner, but recognizing that yes, there is a specific person, and I am feeling triggered in numerous ways because of stuff that I still need to work on in myself, like unresolved issues that are happening in myself.
Yeah. One thing that also I've talked about on my channel, and I think I've talked about on LinkedIn too, that I'd like to get your thoughts on. So I've talked about having, even if you're in a toxic work environment and you're trying to survive, you need to get through to the exit. Not everyone can just walk in tomorrow and quit their jobs.
Yeah.
But I've talked about having a decompression routine. Now, obviously this is going to be personal, but like what for you is something that like a good cleansing activity? Because I think like head to body ratio is helpful, but in terms of just kind of like, restoring the energy and like alleviating from the day, or even preparing to like navigate it, like what tips do you have for people to stage themselves to be resilient during the day, to protect themselves from burnout, and then how to like restore after work?
Yeah. So I feel like going right to the restore after work for a moment.
Yeah.
And because as you were speaking about it, I was thinking about a couple of different things, but particularly the exercise that I have in my book called Encouraging Silliness, because we're sort of taught that as adults, we kind of have to stop having so much fun and being silly. I mean, sure, you can have fun in certain ways, but it usually involves very like strict parameters of what is like adult fun, what is acceptable, what is not. And in my workshops that I've worked with people and worked with clients, I've done versions of this, and pretty much everyone admits that they'd love to be silly. And most people don't have that opportunity to do it. And then some people who have kids are like, it's one of the great things about having kids is it gives me permission. I get to be silly with my kids.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I suggest, as a naturally silly person, this stuff comes to me very, very easily, is to practice being silly. And what I mean by that, and again, I have the exercise in the book, is setting aside 5-10 minutes at the end of the day, whether it's right after work, right after you log out, or maybe it's a little later, after dinner, or maybe whatever it is, kind of finding a time that feels and works right for you. And so it's very much about getting into your body with the silliness. And so you start by moving really slowly. That's the mindful slow-mo exercise that many folkies love, and I do too. That helps with sleep, but we won't get into that one at the moment. So you start moving slowly. You could look in the mirror, you could close your eyes, you could do whatever, and just then start like moving your body.
Here, I'll full screen you.
Okay, it's a little maybe tricky being extra silly with while seeing myself. Just start to like in whatever wackadoodle way you can think of. And you can even start making noises like, and continuing to do that and allowing that to happen. And you might even notice even when you're not around anyone, you might feel self-conscious or feel self-judgment coming in. And that's all part of the process of letting yourself be silly. And most likely you'll end up laughing, which in and of itself is a stress reliever. You're releasing tension from your body, and just that overall sense. It's a way of like having fun, decompressing, reminding yourself that you don't have to take yourself so seriously. And it really is actually helping reintegrate your nervous system back to the parasympathetic rest and recovery mode.
Awesome. So you guys, we can't see you. So give that a try right now, just for like 30 seconds, and let us know how it feels. I won't, again, like I'm being sensitive about what I'm putting on the screen today, because I know not everyone wants this broadcast in a lasting way. But as you do that, I'm going to move into the next question, which I know so many people are feeling this one right now. What advice do you have for Zoom burnout, specifically leading large teams consistently on Zoom, which feels like it requires you to force personality, force energy, especially for introverts?
Yeah, that is, I definitely hear you on that. A lot of people are experiencing that for sure. I guess it sort of depends a little bit on the meeting and the culture where you're at. If you can be on just listen only with no video, then I certainly recommend that, right? So it's like you're present, you're listening, but you don't have to be like, I'm here. You can be like, I'm listening, right? So you don't have to be putting that literal mask, or not quite so literal, right? But the more or less that mask of like a smile, or like looking really, I'm interested, but this is totally exhausting and I'm not really that interested, right?
Yeah.
So being able to get off the screen, or if you're on the screen, doing different breathing exercises. Because nobody knows that you can have your eyes open and be taking deep breaths as you're listening. So calming yourself, grounding yourself into your body, and really acknowledging, okay, I'm aware that I'm grounding into my body. You can even name it. Wow, I feel tired from this. I'm an introvert, and this is challenging for me to be around this day in and day out. And that's valid. My feelings about this are totally valid. Now let me ground into my space. Let me use my breath to see if I can just relax myself a little bit and tune more into me, less output and more input.
Yeah, absolutely. I also even think like between Zoom calls, like as you're kind of like logging out and joining the next one, that less exercise, like it really, I know it feels weird to do it. I feel that, but it does, again, it's just like, it's going to give you a little bit of laugh, a little bit of a levity. Because like I'm also an introvert and I also get very drained by being in meetings, especially like virtual meetings all day, especially because you are just kind of sitting stationary in the same place because you're working from home and it's like, at least in the office, you're moving around, getting coffee and stuff. You're like, okay, well, I'm just like here now. So just like it's movement, but it's also like Charlene said, it's going to be a little bit of a reboot there for you. Yeah. And Morgan says that we're her peeps. So I just wanted to shout that out and thank you. So, and then someone has an issue with the way I speak. So that's cool because they don't have to watch my channel, so they can just move on.
That's right.
That's another conversation for us. Now, as we are getting up to time, so I do want to ask you guys to actually here. First, I want to ask everyone who is still tuned in. First of all, thank you so much for hanging out for the last 15 minutes. I hope that you have gotten so much value from the conversation. You've gotten some tools into the toolkit. You're ready to start recovering from burnout. I want to ask you guys a question. Let me know in the comments, and I know I don't see them straight away. Do you guys want to help make Charlene a bestseller? Maybe.
Oh, I love that. I really like that question.
I mean, she's a pretty awesome human being from what you can tell. I'll vouch for her personally. So obviously she has this book. Now I'm going to tell you guys something that behind the scenes, if you have not written a book, have not thought about writing a book, haven't paid attention to how books work. So what happens on Amazon specifically, I can't speak to all of them, but when a book launches on Amazon, the more copies it sells, the higher it's going to rank and the more people it's going to suggest the book to. And that is how you get bestseller status. Okay. So, and that is like, I know how much work Charlene put into this book because I was there from she got the book deal offer up through like her virtual launch party last night. And I know how much she wanted to help as many people as possible. So if you want to help Charlene and get this awesome, beautiful book in your hands, you will not regret again. Such a great investment. You can go to everydaycoherence.com/book. She has links to everywhere. If you are on YouTube, just follow the Amazon link, go and buy it there. If you bought the book, drop in a review. Another thing that's totally going to help her out. So I just wanted, I hope that you guys do go. Again, I'm not going to judge you if you don't.
Judgment-free zone here.
Yeah, I personally love the book. My best recommendation is someone who's typically an ebook reader is that got the actual hard copy just because like, and I know that you guys won't be able to see it. It's just like absolutely beautiful. There's like worksheets in it. Where is my camera? And it's just like, it's one that like, I feel like going through it, and I'm going to take some time going through it instead of just doing like a quick read like I've done. Having the virtual, like the physical copy will be helpful because it's actual tools. And the other thing is that I feel like this is just a great one to keep on your desk or in your workspace or on your nightstand that you can go to because there's so many exercises. It is such a phenomenal, phenomenal toolkit. And I know that no matter like kind of what the obstacle or what you feel like you need in that moment is going to be in this book. So like, buy it. I don't think you're going to regret it. You guys know, like you guys hang out with me. I don't push things. Like I don't suggest things often, but this is one that I'm like, go and get it because like, I just think it is so amazing. And I see that Sarah already has it on her list.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah.
Now also like Charlene, do you just want to talk like, tell us a little bit more. So obviously we're to buy the book, but there's also bonuses for people that get the book, right?
Yep, absolutely. So when you get the book, you'll see the URL that's in the book, and it's in the about the author.
Reveal.
It's in the about the author page right near the back, and it's a URL. You'll click on it, and it gives you per chapter about 2 to 3, some of them 4 extra supplements that are guided meditations. So it's one thing to read the meditation and then follow it and do it. And I actually guide you through each of these different meditation exercises, and they're all downloadable. So you can just hit download. You can put them on your in your Dropbox, wherever you save your stuff on your phone, and you can put the headphones in. So if you have, say, 3 minutes or 5 minutes, depending on the exercise, during your day or first thing in the morning or in the afternoon, you just put the headphones on and listen to the exercise. And then I have a couple of how-to videos as well, including the encouraging silliness one, because hey, if there's any chance for me to just be showcase silliness in the world, I'll do it. I'll happily do it. So there's a couple of how-to videos as well that go along with it, but most of them are the guided meditations that are available for each chapter.
Yeah. And I love your meditations. And I also love like that they're kind of like quick hits, because I even feel like if you're heading into a stressful meeting, or you feel like you're going to be heading into a stressful interaction, or you just had one and you need that little slice of serenity, you need to get back into your body. This is going to be a shortcut to do it. And there's no kind of fumbling around and trying to find the right things, because Charlene has designed it to integrate into her program. So I'm just going to shamelessly promote her and not feel sorry for it.
And I will greatly and continuously appreciate that.
Now, the other cool thing about Charlene is I need to get her hanging out with us more on LinkedIn, but she hangs out on the socials. So you can connect with her digitally and be friends as well. So like, how often do you get to hang out with authors and see what they're up to in their lives and stuff? So Charlene, where else can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Everyday Coherence, and then certainly LinkedIn at my name, so Charlene Rymsha. And then my webpage is everydaycoherence.com, and that has different videos as well, and certainly ways to get a hold of me.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna put it up one more time. If you guys are looking to snatch that book, everydaycoherence.com/book, and you will find all of the links that you need to buy from your vendor of choice. I know some people obviously supporting small bookstores, that's an option as well. So however you wish to buy, but just so you know, Amazon, you get it tomorrow. So there's that.
That is great. You can also go to your local bookstore and ask for it to be special ordered. You can also reach out to me on my website. I've just started, because the books are just coming out, offering signed copies, so I can send it directly to you, signed, sealed, delivered, and I'd be happy to do that as well. And you can find that information on my website, everydaycoherence.com.
Awesome. Wow. We are coming up to the top of the hour, Charlene. Thank you so much. Now, I would love to hear from you guys just as we wrap it up. What tool have you learned from today? How are you going to integrate some of these burnout recovery strategies into your life? Did you get the book? Can we celebrate the fact that you got the book right now? Let us know in the comments. But again, thank you so much, Charlene. So I'd like to do a recap. So if you're in burnout, if you're in a stressful situation, don't wait. Start taking action. You have some starters here. Once you start doing those things, the rest is going to become easy. We got some awesome exercises to do. You know, you can go and get the book. You know where to find it. You know where to find Charlene. For my LinkedIn peeps, feel free to like tag her and suggest that she come and hang out with us some more. Peer pressure. But I know that she's really good about boundaries and she won't care, but I'm going to harass her anyways. And Charlene, thank you so much for coming and hanging with us and giving us just so many insights and sharing your expertise and plucking things straight out of your book.
Mm-hmm. Might as well. Let's pluck them out of here.
All right, friends. This beautiful book can be yours. Links are around. Let us know when you get it. Tag Charlene, especially on Instagram, if you do take a selfie, and tag her. And thank you so much to everyone who was hanging with us. Erica says that she's happy to start living more intentionally. Thomas was hanging with us. Sarah is happy. And I don't know what the obby was for, but I appreciate you hanging out with us so much, Morgan. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out. Charlene, just my immense gratitude to you. Everyone have an awesome rest of your day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.